One story from my personal practice happened recently, and one exercise is the coolest. Listen, you'll all like it. A patient comes in for me to make him insoles. Well, the doctor asked. I ask, what is the reason for making them? Well, to stretch the time. It's about 15 minutes. And he says, the back has been hurting for 2 years, and they've done everything there. I say, all right, we will make them, of course. There is a viewpoint that foot disorders, flat feet, changes in leg length, pelvis twisting, and so on are all interconnected processes. If the insoles are made correctly, everything will be resolved. I'm being a bit ironic. So I want to say right away, may all those who sincerely believe in this forgive me. I don't believe in it. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Maybe for you personally if it happened and the insoles were made and helped, but I've never seen a lasting result. Well, the work needs to be done, the doctor asked. There was also a slight situation with the knee, but still, I made the insole. And while I was doing it, we chatted a bit, and the patient shared his story. There's nothing funny now, but it still had a relatively happy ending, although not quickly. The person developed a hernia. A hernia looks approximately like this. Perhaps someone will watch. Here is our vertebra in miniature, and this little red, small one. Here is the hernia. It is small, I assure you. Every person without exception, once they turn 17, already has hernias. It's not so important whether there is a hernia, but how it manifests if it exists. A hernia can go in any direction. Here it's on the side. It can go forward anywhere. He got the most unpleasant kind of hernia. It pushed out to this side. Here's where the spinal cord is, and it pushed right into the spinal cord. It pressed on it at the level of the coda equina. Let's not get into technical terms. It's in the very lower part of the spinal section. In general, he began to have a number of problems, and one of the main problems was numbness in one leg, pronounced weakness, the leg started to slap, and the most important thing, remember this, the most important thing, in my opinion, he started having issues with urination. That's it. This is one of the most alarming symptoms. If this happens, God forbid, know this, you need to run to the doctor, preferably as soon as possible. This is a very critical symptom. The second critical symptom is the thinning of the leg, and the third critical symptom is when you just stop feeling your leg. That's directly seriously. Notice I haven't mentioned pain even once because pain is usually not a critical symptom. A critical symptom is the loss of control, sensitivity, and so on. That is something serious. So he goes to the doctor. He had surgery. Surgery was done using laser, evaporation method. And everything is fine. Basically, the operation was considered minimally invasive. Invasive means traumatic. Well, the least traumatic. And after a short time, he began to have spondylolisthesis. There, I said it right, remembered twice. Or a septic, let's say, inflammation, when his actual disc, this very disc, the vertebra above and the vertebra below, started a severe inflammation inside the bone, inside the disc. Sometimes when we think there's always inflammation there, that's why there's pain. It almost never happens that way. Usually for the bone to become inflamed, it really takes, well, it's really very serious.
And
they immediately conducted an examination, did an MRI, saw, to put it mildly, got a little scared and started prescribing him large doses of antibiotics because the cause of the inflammation was not clear. It might have been some kind of infectious bacteriological inflammation, or perhaps after something they started combining strong doses of painkillers, which didn't help him, and began injecting opioid narcotics. That's intense. That's how, conditionally speaking, morphine and its analogs, they act on the central nervous system, because all other painkillers act directly on muscles, on, let's say, the body system that is anti-inflammatory, which relieves pain. But opioids affect the brain. That's the strongest painkiller, and they did not help him very much, to put it mildly. From his description of the pain, I have never heard such a vivid description of pain from any patient. But still, I will tell you. It felt like the bushes cut us off, as if I was being stretched on a rack, he says. And the pain was as if my entire spine was endlessly stretching like this. The pain, he says, was hellish. I would just lose consciousness from it. Well, and after they gave him massive doses of antibiotics for a long time, because they were worried. Well, actually, it's very hard to treat such a thing. I'm not laughing. It's not funny at all. It's just, you know, I'm speaking emotionally. That's why I'm saying it this way. And drugs, well, and for 2 years now, he has been constantly on very strong painkillers, although not opioids, because it's very easy to get addicted to them, but constantly on painkillers. I listen to this, to put it mildly, and I get chills, and I want to help him. I said, well, and he describes the situation. I Googled it afterwards. It turns out this can really happen, just in case. Forewarned is forearmed. Let's say I'm not against this kind of laser vaporization. I just want to say that this situation happened with a patient, And those doctors who treated him after that, I concluded that there is indeed suspicion that this is the case. Due to prolonged heating, perhaps the operation was performed incorrectly, just simply. After that, sometime later, this inflammatory process began, because a laser is, after all, evaporation and very intense heating. In general, that's what happened with the patient. It was the first time I saw something like that, even though I have had so many patients after operations and with corsets. Well, I mean metal ones, in the lower back anyway, all sorts of cases. Yes, and his hernia was sequestrated. A piece broke off, protruded into the spine, and detached. And there it started, to put it mildly, not very pleasantly. What I want to say is this. I said to him, listen, in general, are there any contraindications for you for omopteity, well, for something, for example, after the doctors operated on you and treated you for a long time, are you now on conditional disability? Were there any situations that the doctors forbid you to do? Well, something like that, for example, something you can't do. They say, no, there wasn't really anything like that. I say, listen, well, so the situation is quite complicated, interesting, but let me bring a little magic into your life. Perhaps this will be, well, let's say, salvation. So I say, imagine for a second that you don't know everything. And what's your only problem? I ask. I say, does say no. Is it the pain in your lower back? She says, yes, the unbearable pain in my lower back, tightness in the buttock, and so on. I say, listen, let me give you a little magical exercise. Don't ask why, just do it. And he started. Here is the exercise. Important. The ball exercise is my favorite. I do it every day. Now I have chronic back pain, or rather chronic right now, nothing hurts. Haha, nothing hurts at all. Goodness, I want to knock on wood. But while I'm doing the exercise, while I'm doing it, nothing hurts. As soon as I stop, don't do it for a week, the lower back starts to pull, the leg, and so on. Basically, the whole range. To such a person, I generally say, do it like this. I show a bit lower. You take a ball, place it under the navel, a little below the navel, slightly toward the pain. If it's on the right side to the left side, meaning you find the navel and slightly to the right. And then I say, try to lie down. 20 minutes a day. Well, give it a try. Let's fix it. Just like that. Great. And I say, let's see in 2 weeks. Let this little magic bring a pain-free life to you. The person said, well, was, to put it mildly, skeptical. I say, well, you don't need to come to me for a consultation, just try it. You've tried everything. Especially since I have no restrictions. Restrictions are always made by treating doctors. I say, if it gets easier, come back in 2 weeks, and I will tell you what and how it works. The person calls in a week, says, Maxim, a miracle happened. My lower back hurts less. It's a bit more relaxed. 2 weeks passed. Even better. He hasn't fully recovered, but it's much easier for him. So I told you how complex the situation is. A sequestered hernia, and by the way, it's coming back for him. And so he felt better. I address everyone, and perhaps when you most likely might not believe everything said and say, well, some kind of nonsense exercise. How can it help? I have had chronic pain for many years, or such problems and hernias and so on. Just ask your attending doctor one question. Why does a hernia form? Well, for example, how did you get it? Because the trend now is that everyone treats hernias, well, protrusions, extrusions, sequestered hernias. What else do we have? In general, all these conditions fall under the umbrella of hernias. That is, it's all called a hernia, just different manifestations of it. Ask the question, why does it occur? He will answer you. And then you ask a ChatGPT and compare the answers. The truth is, we don't know. We only have assumptions. The intervertebral disc itself becomes more fragile because its blood circulation, that is its nourishment, trophic supply, is disrupted. And nutrition to this area occurs through diffusion. Diffusion is penetration. And the better the soft tissues around the spine are in good condition, the softer, more elastic, well circulated they are, the better the condition of the spine will be. So the very first rule for a healthy back is to ensure that the muscles supporting the spine become not strong, but soft. So you can soften them. And muscles are soft, even if you pump them up, even if you stretch them. And a ball is the fastest way. Why a ball? Because, as a rule, these muscles in the abdomen, these are two iliopsoas muscles. The lumbar part, let's avoid terminology. These two huge columns of muscles in the front are usually the first to get tense, like the ones in the back. But the back ones stretch each time you lean forward to brush your teeth or tie your shoelaces. They are constantly stretching. But this muscle, we almost never stretch. And it slowly and surely, let's say, breaks down.
And this exercise works wonders. Just try it.
Oh, there is an exception. If you are a pregnant woman, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Well, not probably, definitely. All other options are at your personal discretion. I've never had any contraindications. I had a patient, I even did it with stomas, and not just once. That's better not to know what stomas are. But if it comes to it, it's when for some reason the intestines don't function, or when usually cancer consumes part of the large intestine and, let's say, waste exits through a stoma there. And even in this case, I did it. Usually, our body has a high level of foolproof protection. That's it, friends. I hope it was interesting. That's a real case. I really thought it was important to share because it's a ton of information, a really interesting story. I also suggest everyone. I prepared a course on lower back recovery where I explain in detail, not just in 10 minutes, but over an hour and a half, different stories. With me, you answer the questions that need to be answered for recovery, and you get a solution. Well, that's it. I suggest using it via the link in the description below and accordingly getting a healthy back. Because maybe this situation isn't about you, but most likely the situation will be about you. Well, that's it, friends. Thank you. Like, subscribe.